Would you stand up for spreading the gospel even if the whole world was against you? How far would you go to obey what God is calling you to do? We'll talk about it today.
This is the definitive podcast for helping you plan, create, and execute dynamic worship experiences at your church. Useful, practical content in the areas of production, worship, communications, first impressions, and more. This is Making Sunday Happen.
Hey guys, thanks for being here this week. Be sure to hit the like button and share this episode of the podcast with your friends, and subscribe to our YouTube channel if you would. Today on the podcast, I welcome Sean Feucht. Back a couple of years ago when the government told churches that they weren't essential, and the government issued a temporary ban on indoor singing in places of worship. You remember that? Sean stood up. Speaking to CBN, Sean said, "The freedom to worship God is the constitutional right of every American citizen, and those who exercise this right should not be unfairly targeted for criticism." He began a campaign called Let Us Worship, which involved him touring across American cities and holding worship concerts outdoors. He faced steep criticism from in and out of the church. I'm talking with Sean today about the new documentary, Superspreader, that chronicles that journey and what came from the Let Us Worship movement. My conversation with Sean is on the way.
Christians are rising up, I'm telling you guys.
This guy is probably responsible for hundreds of deaths.
You know how valuable your life is? Jesus, we have to do heal this country.
There's a pandemic, there's a plague. Here's a move of God that's going to change America.
Sean Feucht is a speaker, author, missionary, worship leader, and the founder of multiple global movements, including Burn 24/7, Light a Candle, Hold the Line, and Let Us Worship, a movement across America gathering believers to worship and pray boldly for a revival. He's the center of the new documentary, Superspreader. Sean, welcome to the podcast, man. Thanks for being here.
Hey, thanks so much for having me on.
Yeah,
Honored.
man. So what an adventure you and your family has been on the last few years, man. For people who don't know, give me a little update on your story.
Yeah, it's been wild. You know, I mean, for 20 years, I was really focused on the nations and, you know, over 70 countries, you know, planning missional movements around the world, worship and prayer. And then, of course, I'm a worship leader as well on a record label. When 2020 happened, it was like all of our trips were canceled. And we were stuck in California. It's like the worst place to be with the worst restrictions. And we really felt like the Lord, like, I don't know, like called us in that season to focus on our own nation. And that's kind of where Let Us Worship was birthed. It was birthed out of that, you know, and it was a wild journey, more pushback and resistance than I've ever had in my whole life, but also more breakthrough and more glory than I've ever seen in my life. So
yeah.
Yeah, it's been a wild journey.
So I saw a screening of the documentary, Superspreader, and as you started doing events, you were saying that you ran into some resistance that from both the church side and the secular side, right? Ministry folks hit you, and you got hit from government and other places too, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was very polarizing time. I expected the pushback from the government. You know, of course, our governor told, you know, California, Gavin Newsom told us the church couldn't sing.
Yeah, not essential. Not essential.
Yeah, but not even just not that. Like, you can't sing. Like, he's like Pharaoh or something, you know. So here you have casinos, strip clubs, marijuana dispensaries open. You can go to those. You can do whatever, but the church is the problem. And so, you know, we rose up and called that hypocrisy. And it wasn't, the primary motivation wasn't political. It was really biblical. It's like, listen, we have a call, according to the book of Hebrews, to not give up meeting together. And even now, as the day approaches, meet together more. And if there was ever a time when we needed people to gather and get hope and get breakthrough and get life we needed it in that season. And so, yeah, it became very polarizing. I was surprised at how much it was controversial in the church world. I did not expect that. But then again, this is America, and we haven't experienced a lot of resistance and persecution. So a lot of people just didn't know what to do.
Right. Yeah, I do think there's kind of a wheat and tares situation going on still even now of if I'm not firm in my faith, I'm going to fall. I could fall away easily. So what was your enough is enough? I guess that was the point when Newsom said, we can't sing. Was that your breaking point of, okay.
Yeah, like most Americans, I was trying to go along with it, and okay, maybe this thing is really, it was, and the true virus is fear. Obviously, it was, 99.9% survival rate. Of course, we all know people that died from it. However, the fear, the government control, the opportunity to seize on power and control was just outrageous, and so. That was really came my breaking point when it was like, you can't worship. When he said that, I was like, okay, this is over. It's time to rise up. Now you're hitting on something where you're obviously focusing on the church. It's hypocritical. It's bigotry. It's hateful, and you're singling out the church as the issue. So
yeah. What was your why? Why'd you keep going?
The why was, it was, I really started to understand when I would meet people in these cities we'd go to, how broken everyone was, how devastated people were, how much depression, addiction was taking over people's lives, how much, we're not like humans are made for connection and community. Yeah. And we had none of that. And so when I started seeing the power of God break out in city after city, I was like, all of America needs to experience this.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you had the riots, and it was just a summer of violence, destruction. And right in the middle of that, we were seeing God show up city after city after city.
What about yourself? How did you wrestle with that internally? Am I wrong? Am I hearing from God wrong? Am I leading people astray? How did you wrestle with those internally?
Yeah, I think for me, it was, once you choose a path, man, like you just can't look back. And I think that we chose a path, and I knew that we would lose friends. I knew that we would lose, favor probably with some people, but I also knew it was the right thing to do. And for me, it was a real test of, am I going to listen to the fear of man, or am I going to follow the fear of the Lord? I need to make a decision. And it might be very unpopular to some people. However, at the end of the day, I'm not going to stand before them to give an account for my life. I'm going to stand before Jesus to give an account for my life. So I had to keep reminding myself of the simplicity of that. My underground church leaders across the world would reach out to me. They were a great source of encouragement because this is what they deal with every day.
So looking back on Let Us Worship, this is 2 years later now, what was one of the biggest takeaways during that time and still from the gatherings?
I think one of the biggest takeaways was well, first of all, obviously that God can show up and do anything everywhere, and he can flip the script. But then the other takeaway that I got is how easily people are manipulated and how weak people's theology really is. We're sitting up there and we're singing these songs about no longer being a slave to fear, and we're afraid to go to church. We're afraid to worship God outside. We so easily buy into this soft, woke theology that bends the knee to Baal, that bends the knee to these cultural issues. And it was like, man, if you can't stand up and worship Jesus in a season like that, then that's just a dress rehearsal for what's coming later down the lines. And obviously, if you're out there and you don't feel like you responded well, I'm not trying to shame you. I'm just trying to say, hey, listen, let's take inventory for how we responded as the church in that season. In areas where we didn't do well, good news, there's another test coming.
Right. How did you manage wanting to be safe with everything as a political statement? Like, how did you wrestle with kind of both sides of that? Does that make sense?
With political statements?
Yeah, with like everything is a political statement. If I decide to do this, or if I decided, I'll give you an example. Like pastors were in a very hard situation. They're either damned if they do, damned if they don't. Mask, people are going to be mad. No mask, people are going to be mad. Like, how did you sit in the middle of that?
I mean, obviously, when we said we're going to worship in the midst of this, and we're going to fill cities with praise, and we're going to get fined, we're going to get hated, we're going to get attacked by Antifa, all this stuff happened. But, for me, it was like, you have to go down to the authority of Scripture. You have to go down, what does the Bible say? I think at the end of the day, not what the governor says, not what the CDC says. They don't know what the heck's going on. We obviously know that now. Governors don't know what the heck's going on. The legislatures, the city council people don't know what the heck's going on. What does the Word of God say? That is my plumb line. That is my source. That is my guiding post. Now, when it comes down to mask or no mask, whatever, a lot of that stuff is kind of preference. When it comes down to mandating, there were pastors out there that mandated that people had to get the vaccine to come and worship. And I'm like, what gospel are you into? Like, that is the wackest thing ever. I mean, Jesus walked into sickness. Jesus walked into places that were dark. He walked into places that were hopeless. And we have this self-preservation gospel that's so weak. And it really is, especially on the left, it has really, really been weaponized in a lot of ways. You got to love your neighbor. Jesus would wear a mask and sit alone at home with a live stream, watching the live stream. And I'm like, what kind of Jesus are you following, bro? Like that's not the same Jesus I'm following. That's not the one that I see in Scripture. So it really has to come down to the Bible. That has to be the authority in which we live our life and respond to seasons of trial.
And that's a good point that you bring up, because even, people, other Christians would bring up, you need to love your neighbor and use the God card as kind of a guilt trip at times. All right. So tell me about the man from the communist country that came to you guys and said, this is the beginning of how it was for us. Tell me about that story.
Well, first, back to that last point, you truly love your neighbor by when they're depressed and when they're alcoholics and when they're suicidal, you bring them hope. You don't hide away. That's how you truly love your neighbor. And the people that were saying all that other stuff, that's not the way of Jesus. But anyway, okay. Joseph Bondarenko was known as the KGB's most wanted. He was locked up in the gulag. He was persecuted. He had family members die. He was really, communist regime came after him. He's a pastor. And he found me on one of our trips in Southern California, and he said, I need to go meet this guy. And he grabbed my hands and he said, what is happening today in America? This is all how it started for us in Russia. And I mean, he was shaking, speaking in Russian. It was interpreted through his son. And he was saying all the stuff that they started with when they told us it didn't come quick. Like the communists, the shutdown of the church, the persecution didn't come quick. It started really simple and slow. It started with your health safety issues. It started with, you can only meet at this time. You can only go here. It started with little basic things that people went along with. And he's like, that is happening today in America. You must take a stand. We cannot let the nation that I fled, we cannot let this nation look like the nation that I fled. And he was very, very passionate about that. And it really rocked me.
Interesting. How many COVID cases were linked back to Let Us Worship events?
0, as far as we know.
Nice.
I think we had the mayor of New Orleans, the mayor of Tempe, Arizona, the mayor of Nashville, the mayor in LA. They all launched contact tracing programs trying to link us to all these cases after our events, and none of them found anything. So meanwhile, these were the same guys cheering and marching with BLM protesters.
Right.
These were the same guys that were at, Biden rallies,
right.
Getting everybody excited. These were the same guys that let the LGBTQ do whatever they wanted. However, they really targeted the church. And, they're just a bunch of liars.
Yep.
What they are. They're crooked.
What advice would you give to other worship leaders and pastors coming out of this season, still in this season?
Yeah. I would encourage them, as I said before, take inventory. How did you respond in the last season? Now that we know the things that we know that the CDC is a joke. We know that they were, enforcing stuff they shouldn't have. We know that they didn't have all the data. We know that COVID wasn't as deadly. We know, it's like we know a lot of the things now that we can actually step back and look hopefully more objectively and say, man, I really got rattled by fear in this thing. I really got whatever I did there. My response there is not the response that I want going forward. Because I really do believe God's giving us a moment to recollect and look back so that we don't repeat some of the same mistakes. And I have friends, they're amazing leaders and pastors and worship leaders, and they just kind of went crazy. Like something happened in that 2020, people just went crazy. And collectively say, we're not going to do that again. We're not going to buy into the fear mongering narrative again. We are the Church of Jesus Christ. We worship through pandemic, through persecution. We don't stop. That's who we are.
Good. All right. I'm going to hit you with some rapid fire before I let you go. Here we go. What made you the most righteously angry during these last couple years? What was enough is enough?
I think it was the attack on the church, the attack on Christians that believe Judeo-biblical values, and the attack on children. That's another thing that's really made me upset.
Which is still going on. We're still in the middle of that right now.
Yeah.
All right. What is something that is really encouraging for you to see in the church right now?
I think what's encouraging is the churches that really took a bold stand in 2020 and 2021 are rising up. They're growing. The churches that didn't are declining. And I think that God is allowing places that need to decline. And the places that have boldness are they're growing, which is healthy.
Good. Share with me one very quick story of life change during one of your events.
Well, we were just in Syracuse, New York, 2 days ago. There was a woman there that was going to commit suicide. Saw Let Us Worship video, saw we were coming into town, showed up, got totally delivered, got totally freed. Ended up getting baptized, ended up calling our whole family down to the altar. So, that happens in almost every city. And those are some of my favorite stories, from death to life.
How many times did you actually think you were going to die in some of the places that you and your family were in?
I don't know. I mean, there was a couple times in Seattle and Portland where it was a little sketchy. I don't know if I thought I was going to die, but at the same time, I was like, I've been in worse situations in the nation, so I guess I was prepared for it.
All right, last one. What is the secret of your strength?
Prayer life, man.
That is incorrect. Your hair was the correct answer there. All right, where can we find the documentary? It's coming out soon.
Yeah, so you can find the documentary. You can go to superspreaderfilm.com or follow us on socials. You can also, I got a brand new book that just came out called Bold. You can pick that up. I know it's been a real encouragement to people. And yeah, just keep following the journey. September 29th, we'll be hitting 500 theaters across America.
Awesome. It's a great film. I've seen it. Go see it, guys. Incredible movie. Sean, thank you so much for your time, man. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, honored. Thanks for having me on.
Hey guys, Grant Murphy here from the 1230 team. I want to let you know about the heart behind our Go Unlimited subscription plan on our website. We are on a mission to help you make Sunday happen at your church. Our ready-made media is a solution for you to plug and play pre-made media right into your presentation software and be ready to go for Sunday. All of our graphics come with a Photoshop design file for you to edit the text to say whatever you need to say for your context. Our library is packed with mini movies and service openers, countdowns, motion backgrounds, social media content, fully branded series boxes, collections of coordinated media for the holidays and special events, and more. Our Go Unlimited plan is only $33 a month when you pay annually, and you get everything in the library, and I mean all of it. Plus, for the whole year you're subscribed, you get everything we add to the library, and we're adding dozens of products every single month. It is our heart that if you can't do custom media with us, or need a quick solution to fill in the gaps for your Sunday service, our ready-made media library is a solution for you. Get started today at 1230media/go. That's 1230.media/go to get started today.
The show notes for this episode are available now at makingsundayhappen.com.
Well, hey guys, with what Grant was just talking about, we are running a massive Back to Church sale this month. 50% off Go Unlimited, our entire library. 50% off this month only. Just go to 1230.media/go, 1230.media/GO, and use the code Back to Church when signing up for our annual plan. You'll get the library for $198 for the next year instead of $396. Incredible deal this month only, so get in quickly. Well, thanks so much for joining us this week. Hit that like button and subscribe to our show so you never miss an episode, and rate and review us on your favorite podcast app if you would. Next week, I welcome my buddy Ben Stapley. Ben and I are going to be talking about how to do a sermon review. Now, this is not a sermon evaluation. A sermon review is before you preach on Sunday to make sure that everyone is set up well going into the Sunday worship experience. Great stuff from Ben next week. Don't miss that. We'll go out there and create some incredible worship experiences this weekend. I'll catch you next week.
Making Sunday Happen is a production of the ministry of 1230 Media. For show notes, archive episodes, and more free resources for your church, visit makingsundayhappen.com.